Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on this lovely English summer's day. We're going to put on a display for you now that'll last about half an hour, and hopefully by the end of the display you'll have a much better idea what all those different types of armoured vehicles we have inside the museum, and we'll tell you a bit about what the crews are doing inside the vehicles as well. First things first, before we start, the inevitable health and safety notices. You'll have noticed, especially if you've been camping, we've had a bit of rain the last day or two. That's nicely dampened down our track, so there shouldn't be too much dust flying around. But as the vehicles go past, some of them do pump out a fair bit of fumes and some smoke, so it may head with the wind going around in your direction. During the course of the display, there will be a number of very loud pyrotechnic bangs. So I'm warning you now, if you're of a particularly nervous disposition, this probably isn't the show for you. So some loud bangs during the course of the display. And finally, if for any reason we have to call an emergency, we will be asking you all, please, to walk out of the arena, go to the far side of the car park, gather your group together, make sure you can account for everybody, and please wait over there for further instructions from us. Please don't do the obvious things, jump in the car to leave the site. That might cause us more problems at the time. But we hope we don't have any issues like that today. So, on with our display. We're going to start by bringing on a vehicle that's actually not really a tank, not really an armoured vehicle, but it's a really important vehicle we've got in the collection here. No army, no tank is going to be able to fight unless it's got food for the crew, it's got ammunition for the guns, and of course, with big heavy things like tanks, plenty of fuel, whether that's petrol or diesel, to keep them going. And so you need vehicles like this one, which is, in modern parlance, we call it a logistics vehicle. In the old days, it would be called a supply vehicle. That's needed to bring all the supplies forward to where the vehicles, the fighting vehicles, actually are. And what we've got here is a British Army vehicle called a Stalwart. It's actually a six-wheel drive vehicle, first designed back in the 1960s, and it's designed in the era of the Cold War, where we thought the NATO country, the Western countries, we might be going to war with the Eastern Bloc countries led by the Soviet Union. And as part of the NATO planning, how to defend Europe, we were going to blow up in the NATO countries all the bridges going across all the rivers that run up into the North Sea. So if you look at maps of Europe, the Rhine, the Niederrhein, the Wau, lots of rivers were going to be our defensive lines. And in fact, those bridges, when they were built, all the bridges after World War II, built in Europe, the big ones, have a demolition chamber built in them, so we could blow up those bridges. And that was going to be a problem for the Allies as well, the NATO countries, because it meant, how do we get the supplies to troops that might be on the other side of the river still? And that's where they made these trucks, a Stalwart amphibious. This could cross a river or a lake with all the supplies in the back, still get to the troops that's going to need those supplies. You could actually put, if you needed to, about 20 soldiers in the back with all their equipment as well. So what you're looking at there, the front of the vehicle, that's the cab, 3 crew members. Driver sits right in the middle with his steering wheel. Whatever you're going to carry on the back, and as I said, it's 6-wheel drive. All 6 of those wheels are powered by the Rolls-Royce engine in there, petrol engine. That will get you across very rough ground. The other thing, as I said, being amphibious, what this vehicle can also do is it takes in water and it squirts it through jets out the back by the engine, and that will propel you across an inland waterway. Famously, one of the soldiers out in Germany got a bit miffed with his girlfriend, missed her a lot, ended up pinching one of these and started heading back across the English Channel with his Stalwart. And Alvis, the company that made these, were almost cheering him on, because if that vehicle had got all the way across the channel, that would have been a great advert for their product. As it was, the Navy turned the guy around about halfway and he had to go back to the French coast. And in the end, don't worry, it's not a sad story. He ends up meeting up with his girlfriend afterwards after being slapped on the wrist for doing it. But it was a great advert for this vehicle, because this is, again, one of those vehicles, when you think about it, it's got to get those supplies to where the tanks have got to, and those tanks might be in places that, you know, a normal truck just won't be able to go. Now, one other thing, as we show you the vehicles will be coming out, you can notice or you can listen to, wheeled vehicles tend to be quieter than track vehicles. But tracks can take you to places that wheeled vehicles can't always get to. So advantages and disadvantages for both types. Now, this next type of vehicle coming round, this is a different type of armoured vehicle, and this is from the other side of the fence, as it were, in the Cold War. This is a Soviet era vehicle, and it was used for reconnaissance and stealth, finding out, scouting out where the enemy were. When we called these vehicles, they were all given names by the Western Allies. This one was called BRDM-2, the Soviet name for this one. And you can see it's actually in Soviet, rather jazzy camouflage scheme there. And the idea of this one goes ahead of the main force. It's got a machine gun in the turret, but the truth is the machine gun is really there for a bit of moral support for the crew. It's not really there for fighting the enemy. If you bump into the enemy, quick burst of machine gun fire, your role is gathering information on the enemy, getting that information back to the main force commander. And to do that, back to the Russians knew we were going to blow up the bridges, so they made this vehicle amphibious as well. It's got a little board on the front that can be raised to help break waves so they don't flood over the top of the vehicle. Commander in the top, he's got the binoculars, he's got the radio, he's reporting back everything he can see. Four-wheel drive vehicle, and again at the moment you can see the flaps are open, the driver looks out through his little screens on the front. Most armoured vehicles, when they come under fire, they close their vision ports and look through glass periscopes, and again you can see those inside the museum. Good thing about glass periscopes, if a bullet or anything, there's this little splash breaker that goes ahead of the vehicle if you're going through water. It's raised it up there. But the good thing about periscopes, bullet hits it, nothing comes into the vehicle to wound the crew member or damage the vehicle. Downside of periscopes, it's like looking through the world through a glass fish tank. It tends to distort the outside world. So quite often, you'll see armoured vehicle commanders and drivers going into action. That's where it would squirt water out the back, a bit like the stalwarts, to try and propel it through the water if it was crossing a river. Now, another type of vehicle, again, if you've been inside the museum, you've probably seen our First World War trench display. The whole idea of that first tank that the British invent back in 1916 goes ahead of the infantry, crushes down the German barbed wire, and lets our soldiers follow on behind to get in the German trenches without getting massacred. Now, by the Second World War, tanks are doing many more things on the battlefields. They're not just battering rams, but they're also doing it much faster. So if you've watched your war movies, things like the Americans, the Germans, they make half-track vehicles. You put infantry in the back of those vehicles to keep up with the tanks when they're attacking. And by the 1960s, when this vehicle was made, pretty much every country that built a tank built a box on tracks like this for carrying soldiers forward into battle. This was made for the British Army. It's called the FV, Fighting Vehicle 432. Sometimes vehicles get nice names, sometimes they seem to get lumbered with their production number. And the 432 is really a metal box on tracks. Driver at the front, he's got the square hatch that's open at the moment. His seat's up, comes under fire, he drops the seat down, closes the hatch. Behind him is the vehicle commander. Quite often they fit a machine gun there for firing at enemy positions. But the really important bit's in the back. That's where the infantry section is carried, almost on bench seats down the side, and there's a door at the back there as well. That's where they debus, as it's called, jump out the back and finish the attack on foot. So the army in them, how to use the radios. Down in the other direction, down at Lulworth, is where they learn how to fire the guns on the vehicles. And the ranges are closed at the moment, so you can walk through them and have a look. So, where are they? Right, okay, here's the Ruritanians. Now, what have they got? Now, like many countries, Ruritanians don't make their own vehicles, they buy them from someone else, and that's a really good vehicle. It's a vehicle Britain made back in the 50s. We sold it all around the place, evidently to the Ruritanians as well. It's called a Saladin armoured car. Now, there's a Ruritanian. What do we think about this? Right, so the Ruritanian commander, he's found the position, he's captured it, putting his flag up on it. There you go, there is a Ruritanian, there is such a thing amazingly, there's a Ruritanian flag. Yeah, get on with it, we're all getting wet, thank you. So he's captured that position. Now, most armoured vehicles, you can't carry the same thickness of armour protection all around the vehicle. So you tend to put the most armour protection on the front. And it's always a good clue, wherever that vehicle faces, that's where the crew commander thinks he might be being attacked from. Because so you point in that direction, you've got the best protection there. So, Ruritanians, they've captured this position, they're now going to try and defend it, so we'll get an idea, when he parks his vehicle up, where he thinks that best position to defend from is, and also gives an indication where he thinks he's going to be attacked from. Now, some of you may be spotters in the audience. You might notice the same 6 wheels. That's actually the same engine as we saw on the Stalwart. Again, militaries tend to reuse things all the time, so building different types of vehicles on the same system. So there he is. He's parked up. He's hidden his vehicle. He's going to defend that position. Now, let's just see if anyone was paying attention earlier on when I was waffling on. What would an armoured force commander need to do now, or want to do, before he puts in an attack on this Ruritanian position? What's the first thing he's likely to do in a situation like this? Come on, someone must have been paying attention. What's that? Make a cup of tea? No, we're talking about the army, not the RAF. Someone's got it down here, we're talking, that's right. They'd send out their scout vehicle, wouldn't they? They need to find out about the Ruritanians first of all, before they put in their attack. So there's the scout vehicle working its way forward, radioing back all the information that's needed. And don't forget, that's not just about the Ruritanians, it's about the route forward. How can we hide ourselves from the enemy? Will the bridge take the weight of our whopping great tanks if they actually work? And the other thing he can do is actually call in artillery fire. Let's keep the Ruritanians' heads down. Don't let them settle at all. He can do all of that with that vehicle just by using the radio that he's got inside there. And his role, therefore, like we said before, not so much about the fighting, it's about delivering information. So the main force commander knows what he's going to be up against when he goes and attacks. Now, as I had to explain to you earlier, the T-72 is not working, but that doesn't mean to say that we won't attack the Ruritanians. Now, out there, in the back of our vehicle, there is our 432 with our volunteer infantry in. The Ruritanians putting down fire on that. Our vehicle coming round, that's not going to put off our stoic volunteers in the back of the 432. They're working their way round. Look like we got a hit there on whatever the magic tank that we can't quite see at the moment has fired at the Ruritanian Saladin. And there's the 432 working its way forwards. And again, however many drones you've got, however many aeroplanes, however many spy satellites, even tanks, if they do work, you're still going to need infantry on the battlefield. So there's the 432 debussing, as we said earlier, our infantry. They're coming out the back there. And they're putting in what the army would call a section or a pepper pot attack. And the idea is the section commander, there he is, he's leading them forward. One section will go forward at a time, drop down, followed by the other section. And they try to keep in a straight line, and that's not because it looks pretty, it's a very practical reason. You don't run in front of your mate and get shot up by the backside by your own side. So keeping them spread out is really important. Oh, we've got a bloodthirsty lot today. Oh, look at that. pathetic. Ruritanians have thrown in the towel already. Well done, our volunteers there. Give them a round of applause. And they managed to do that all without tank support, so goodness knows why we're the tank museum if the tanks aren't needed. But well done to the volunteers there, and there goes the Ruritanian flag. There goes up our flag, so we can all sleep safely in our beds tonight. Well done again. Now, what we're going to do for you now, ladies and gentlemen, Ruritanians will be taken into custody, don't worry about them. In about 10 minutes' time, our rides vehicle will be starting from down where that tent is. That will run throughout the afternoon. We're going to open up the Vehicle Conservation Centre over there, so you can go up in there and have a look at all the other tanks, and there's a lot of them that aren't on display in the main